So I'm Ria, and I'm delighted to be here at this incredible webinar that Amrita has put on with these empowerment leaders. It's such a beautiful opportunity to really drop in kind of with the bigger questions about how we kind of reweave and come back into connection with each other, with the natural world, and all kinds of levels. What I want to talk about today is how we kind of reweave our connection to nature, which we traditionally have had through our ancestries. And the reason that this is important is because what Indigenous leaders and teachers and other wisdom keepers are telling us is that this kind of dropping in and the kinds of knowledges that come through when we listen are actually necessary to human survival. So like the work is actually quite big. So let's step up and really listen and learn how we do that and become receptive enough to receive information that perhaps we're not used to receiving. So what I would love us to do together is if you could just drop in the chat where you are located, because a big part of this work is about relationship with place, like where we actually are. So it might be where we live, where we're traveling, whatever. Just drop in the chat where you are located. So I'd just like to let you know that I'm in Yukai in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. Beloved to me is this sacred mountain, Wollumbin, also known by other names. So if you want to mention something in your landscape that's really precious to you, so that we can get a sense of each other's, how we are in the landscapes that we're living in. So I'm seeing Gunai Kunai country, Bunjalung country. Hi, Carmen and JV, lovely to see you. Jago Turrbal country. So there's a lot of rivers flowing through people on this call today. So I just want to acknowledge those rivers. I want to acknowledge the movement of those rivers, their ancestry, the beingness of those rivers and those places, and how alive they are to us, and how much they flow through our lives. Why are we listening is kind of a critical question. It's as though we've arrived at this big moment where we don't have the answers that we used to have, that the ways of being and thinking aren't really cutting it for us anymore. Einstein said that we can't get out of this mess from the same level of consciousness that created it, which is a rough paraphrase, but that's essentially it. We've got to come into a consciousness that can bring humanity forward into the next kind of iteration of living on this planet. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So we've been through pandemic, we've got climate, we've got, a lot of panic, a lot of kind of internal turmoil, we've got a lot of mental health challenges, we've got a lot of sense in our communities of being separate, of being conflicted, of not really knowing what our place is and how we belong. So what this really points to is there's a kind of a pandemic of lostness. There's a sense of not knowing who we are, not knowing how we belong. So I'm just trying to move the PowerPoint forward. And nothing's particularly happening. So I'm just going to click on it. Hang on, let's do it this way. Great. Here's a poem from David Wagner, who is a poet from the northwest of California. And I'm just going to ask you to breathe, because what we're doing is we're going to down-regulate our nervous system. We're going to come into presence with our bodies, because this is the first step actually to listening, is to come into our bodies, coming into place and just noticing how and where we are. So if you'd like to just close your eyes and just take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Notice your breath in your belly. Just take this time for you. Take this Sunday time. You can put your hand on your heart if you'd like to. So stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I've made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. So this poem really speaks to our willingness to know, our willingness to kind of know that we're even here, our willingness to be present. So today I'm going to take us through 4 steps. We're kind of into the first one already, and I'd invite you to grab some headphones, a notebook, just really settle in. You don't have to sit up really straight unless you love to do that. Feel free to really relax. You can even lie down, get some cushions, just really, what we're looking to do is really down regulate the nervous system, because that's how we start to come into knowledges that can only reach us when we're in this state of really deep relaxation. In Buddhism, you might have heard of a practice called vipassana, to see clearly. And when we sit and the mind settles, we start to get what are called insight knowledges. So it's quite similar. It might even be the same thing, you know. So what we're trying to do is we're really trying to settle so that these different kinds of knowledges start to enter us. And one pathway for these knowledges to enter us, particularly when we're in nature, is through our sensing body. So in these steps, we're arriving in our body, we're arriving in our place. And then what I really want to share with you is how we find our methods, how we know how we're going to listen, because there's as many pathways to listening as there are human bodies on this planet in terms of human listening. So the work really is finding your own listening pathway. And mine was a little bit torturous. I'm doing a PhD about listening to country. And I've been a very intellectual person. I went to Oxford, I've got a law degree, and I worked really high-pressured intellectual jobs. And at the same time, I had quite serious illness in my body, and I'm grateful for that. I had really severe endometriosis, and it was sort of saying, hello, body, I'm here too. So for me, it's really been a journey of coming and finding how the body listens and how it feels and how to really come in touch with it. Slideshow. Hello. So let's just hone in a little bit more. I'm just going to come in a bit closer to Black Cockatoo here. And what we're working with now, we've been working with the breath, breathing in, inhaling, exhaling. And part of the air element is sound and its impact on our brain waves and how it settles us down. So you might have noticed that when there's an acknowledgement of country and people are not down-regulated, they're not connected, it can feel really hollow, it can sound really hollow. So what we're trying to do is to come into a deep regulation by actually really entering the languages of place. And that happens elementally. So at the moment we're working with breath and with air, and sound. So what I want to do, in acknowledging your effort to be here, I want to share a quick story about Black Cockatoo here and what Black Cockatoo taught me through my songwriting method. I've been sitting zazen, watching my breath, and suddenly I had this kind of vision of a black cockatoo. And then a song came, and I'm just going to sing you a little bit of it. And it goes like this. I've been sitting with these old eucalyptus trees, showing me how to listen to the breeze. And I notice they're waking these hibernating memories. Here, black cockatoo calling you home. You home. And what this communication and experience revealed to me, and it was really pivotal in my listening journey, was that Black Cockatoo was calling me home. So here was I in this quest to belong and to understand my place in this land which has such deep time history, that's so traumatized, that where genocide has occurred. Like, how do I belong here, given my Celtic ancestry? And when Cockatoo conveyed this to me, that Cockatoo was finding a home in me. It really helped me to understand that that's the journey that I was on, that I was coming toward country at the same time that country is coming towards me. So it's this process of coming into deep relationship through our listening. So if you were with me at the beginning of 2020, you would have found a person living in Melbourne who was in this process of life disintegrating. I did not know, I had no ground to stand on as far as I could see. My marriage had disintegrated. I'd been performance managed out of my high profile legal job. So I had this real identity of being someone who was really smart, who was really kind of onto it, was quick with ideas and could convey really difficult concepts. I was an advocate. I was helping women experiencing family violence. I was in court. I was on TV. I was the it girl in my imagination. And then I was performance managed and told, essentially that I was all wrong. And you can imagine, I don't know if you've been through experiences like that, where the thing that you think is your great offering, you're actually coming up against feedback that it's not cutting it. It's not either that's the story that they're telling you because there's something in them, but in any case, that's what's in your face. And for me, it was profoundly disorienting and painful at a level that it took me a long time to recover from and come into an understanding that this moment of being told that I wasn't my brain was actually the pivot that allowed me to start listening in different ways. And so this happened, and then I went into lockdown in Melbourne by myself for a year in an apartment in Coburg. And I didn't have really very many friends in Melbourne. I'd made a few, and I'm grateful those relationships deepened, but it was a time that was deeply confronting. I don't know how many of you have had experiences of really profound isolation, but it can really, it can start sending you like quite mad. And there's studies about the effect of isolation on all kinds of health at different levels. So it was a time of watching the world go mad. Melbourne really went hard on the lockdowns. It was like, we're going to stay home. That's how we're going to fight it. So I don't know what we were fighting, but there was a lot of fighting kind of language, including inside me. And as the seasons changed, the leaves fell off the trees. They turned orange and they died. And I was still inside. And then the winter came, and I was still inside and by myself. And the walls, it was like they started closing in. And you can probably hear that when I drop into that memory, like that was a moment in my life. It was just like, wow, it's me. That and it wasn't like being on a deep meditation retreat, because I've been there, in the silence of it and coming up against all the conditioning and all the mind, the habitual patterns and all the stories. This was a whole other level about how do I get through this day? Like, what can I call in? Today can be horribly isolating, or, where's the miracle I can call in? And so at some point, I was walking outside every day because we were allowed that. I was having nightmares about surveillance, like the psychological pressure was, I think you have to have been through it to really get that. And I know some of you here who are listening, you also went through this. So I want to acknowledge the pain that of that time and the terrible kind of dilemmas that were presenting themselves in the different ways that we were handling this pandemic. So I was walking outside a lot, and I started singing every day and songwriting. So the musicality of my childhood came back, and I'd had a lot of music, but really I started singing in the day and talking to the day when it arrived, because I was so relieved, there was the sun, and I started singing to the sun. And then I was walking one day along the creek in Coburg, and as I did every day, and I literally felt a ping of energy come across the paddock, across the organic garden there, Farmer Joe's garden. And I saw this great being who was like 80 meters tall and 300 years old. And I had not seen him there before, because I was going down and walking. And he said, "Hey, come over here." So I was like, cool, okay, I guess you're calling me, and I'm listening, and I got nothing else to do. So over I went, and this is a giant mahogany eucalyptus tree, actually from indigenous to this area, to the Northern Rivers area, to the subtropics. And I started to sit with this tree every day. And the tree has a concave as it's at its base, and there was sawdust and really soft place of sitting. So it was this kind of ideal situation. And I saw that I could be alone in my apartment and buying this story of isolation and loneliness and no one loves me and what happened to me. And actually there were whole other worlds were available. And so this beloved tree became my buddy, became my backstop, became my best friend, became my confidant. He knew everything. And to be honest, when you start sitting with a being like this, from the moment you put your hands on its bark and the moment you put your back against the tree and you sit among its roots, they already know you. There's some alchemy there. There's something inexplicable and hard for us to understand in the level of consciousness that we are at, but actually they already know us. And so we start to kind of enter their realm and we start sensing in different ways as we come into this relationship. So I'm going to say that Grandfather Joe actually rewired me. And there's a good reason for that, actually, because the picture you can see on your screen is these are nerve endings in the brain. And if you were to zoom in even closer, you would see that if you magnify the nerve cells in the brain 1,000 times, this is what they look like. They actually look like trees. So there's a lot of cosmological stories about the tree of life, you know, at the center of the universe. And there's a tree of life at the center of us too, not just in our brains, but there's some mystery there that I'm still really trying to fathom about trees in our ancestry, trees as our teachers and trees as none other than us in some sense. And I had deep experiences of this. So we know that river deltas are shaped like trees, placentas have this tree-like shape, and trees are absolute life givers. They give us our breath, they give us our oxygen. So their incredible generosity towards human existence, you know, is evident on a range of different levels. And I was playing with a GoPro under the water and captured this incredible image when I was under the water and they just finally let the current take me. I was like, okay, well, I wasn't really getting any particularly good images. I was trying to get images, and then I finally let go and said to the creek, you know, while I was underwater, you know, where do you want to take me? And it just carried me into these kind of light shows, and this image came, and it's the light hitting the rocks on the bottom of the creek and making what look like they look like roots to me. So there's another kind of level of mystery about how light is made material through processes of, you know, the chlorophyll in the trees and how they actually, you know, how trees actually make light come into materiality, which is really intriguing. So this was my life in Melbourne. I started talking to the trees and different sort of ancestries started opening up to me. Through a series of coincidences, I started working with the Celtic tree oracle, and I was sort of, you know, random. And then I started doing readings for people, and people were having these kind of really big cathartic insights. And I knew it wasn't me, you know, but I was speaking things and sensing things that were kind of inexplicable to me. Like what was it? Why did I know to say that? You know, where was this coming from? So my ancestry is Celtic. The Jagos are Cornish, Cornwall in England. The Scottish Robinsons, there are the Irish Fitzgeralds and the Hogans, just to name a few. But you go back, you know, a few generations, 4, 5, 6 generations, and there's a kind of, I found it's like a kind of remarkable kind of concentration of braided Celtic ancestry in me. And so what I've come to understand is that these ancestral pathways of knowing are in all of us, and they're still there, you know, and particularly the songwriting has taught me that country is trying to wake us up to what it knows here, but also what's in our ancestries, like what's known, you know, what we're holding in our bodies at a cellular level. And I could keep flipping out to the science and what it is increasingly sort of affirming about this. But I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna leave that aside for another conversation, because I really want to just keep conveying to you from this kind of poetic, storied level, which has so much to share and so much to teach us. So the question becomes, how do we wake these ancestral knowledges in our bodies? How do we kind of activate these pathways so that we can come back into this relationship where country is our teacher and is really guiding us and showing us? And while I'm saying this, there's a beautiful Ulysses butterfly outside the window. just that sense of wonder that comes, when we're alive and paying attention. It's flitting around, making me laugh. So in traditional cultures that have survived, this is still very much alive. This sense of being able to drop in with the knowledges of the natural world. I don't know if any of you have seen this film, Tanner, which was released in 2015. And it was filmed in Vanuatu, where I grew up till I was 6, which might be one reason why I was so taken with this film and might explain my journey now. But the shaman who is sitting at the base of this tree is in the center of the village, and the village is in conflict because this beautiful couple here, and this is a real story that the villagers decided to depict, and they wrote the script and all of that. So it's beautifully, beautifully done and won a lot of awards internationally. So the shaman, faced with a conflict, goes and sits in the tree, and the film beautifully depicts how he goes into a trance, and he calls into the spirit of the tree and into the roots and into Mother Nature. And he's with his fire, which is another beautiful elemental practice, which I can't recommend highly enough. Just sitting with a fire, and he asks for guidance. And over maybe a couple of days, he receives a song, and the song is to guide him and guide the village to know what to do next, to resolve this really difficult conflict that they're in. So he goes to the tree and he listens. This is very different from prevailing, or certainly in our kind of intellectual Western traditions. There was a flip that happened slowly, but we can locate a kind of moment in time as a storytelling piece where nature became considered untrustworthy. And nature has always been, the stories of the gods in many traditions are really about massive elemental, Poseidon, the god of the sea, Thor, the god of thunder. It was known that the elements, the nature was powerful and could give life and could take it away. Like, this was known. But there was a moment where human consciousness had shifted to a point where there was this idea that humanity was losing a battle against nature, and that nature was fundamentally untrustworthy. And the only way for humans to survive and really find a true safety in union with God was to go through the mind, because the mind was developing in a particular way in Western intellectual traditions. I mean, it's the Enlightenment, the Renaissance is kind of flourishing of the intellect in European traditions. It's a very different kind of mind and thinking elsewhere, but in particular in Europe. So here you can see on the left side of the screen, this is from the bubonic plague that happened through 1300, 1400s, 1500s. There were millions and millions of lives lost to the bubonic plague, but this is an outbreak in London in the early 1600s. The Great Fire of London was, I think, in 1616. And there was this, the Spanish Inquisition had roared into life for, I think, the late 1400s. And there was this profound mistrust, this wish to come closer to God and not knowing how to do it, and this profound mistrust of the natural world and of women and their spell making and of herbal medicines. And this mistrust sort of really cohered into this quest to come into the mind and for the mind to figure this out. And we all still kind of carry this, and it definitely has its necessities and its functions. But this image here is of Descartes, who is a French philosopher. And in 1610, if you were with Descartes, you would have found him deeply pondering this question about how to live, that we all deeply ponder. And Descartes you can sort of equate him to the Buddha in a sense. So Descartes grew up in a really privileged family. I don't know about the Buddha's dad, but Descartes' dad was really violent and actually beat him up quite a lot. So he was in this sort of, you could say he's in quite a somatically traumatized state. So he is in this question about how to live. And so he sort of abandons his privileged life, and he goes and joins the army, and he sees the devastation of war. He thinks this away. He goes into the forest and he listens, and he has a series of dreams, and there are 3 dreams, and he interprets these dreams to mean that it's through the mind, it's through the rational mind, that the pathway to God is going to be found, and all the problems of humanity are going to be overcome, which is really interesting, and so there's this idea that the mind and the body are separate, humanity and nature are separate, and so you see these splits starting to happen, or starting to be articulated in really convincing ways. A new story is being told. Now, Descartes said, look, these are just my dreams and this is just my memoir. And this is just, I'm saying cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But basically, this is just my method. Take it or leave it. So he wasn't presenting this as a kind of philosophical foundation for all of Western intellectual traditions. He was saying, this is my journey. Okay. So I don't know why I feel the need to defend Descartes. I just think it's always it's Descartes' fault. Of course it is. It's all our doing. But slowly over time, this is the direction that the Western intellect was headed towards. And there's kind of this moment that Descartes sort of is the one who said, basically that it's the mind that matters. Out of this, we see all kinds of split offs happening. We see, women, nature. These are not places that have soul. Women don't have souls. Nature doesn't have a soul. And Descartes, in teaching his students he is actually teaching them to numb their senses. And so he would teach his vivisection students, who were vivisecting live rats, animals, etc., to close their ears to the sounds of screaming that they would hear when they were cutting up, you could say, torturing these animals. So that was an actual practice to really dumb the senses and really, really understand nature and non-male bodies as mechanistic, as something to be worked with in order to help on this grand project towards union with God, essentially. So that's a big topic. That's a big topic. And so it's got us into a lot of trouble to think that nature isn't alive. Because at the same time that this pathway out of the sentient world and out of the sensing body, at the same time that was happening in an intellectual sense, these knowledges and these knowings were actually surviving in other kind of areas. And one of them was through poetry and through songs, and the folk tradition is full of, accounts of relationships with sea. My ancestry is Cornish, and I've recently come across some songs. I think they're called shanties, and it's what shall we do with a drunken sailor? What? So it's all about the swell and the movement of the ocean, and very kind of embodied kind of seagoing life is really represented in that music. But I started in my own journey to sort of try to understand, how to communicate, how to listen, how to hear. What does country want me to hear at these times? I started just, at the invitation and instruction of Indigenous teachers and advisors, that were known to me personally, but also that I was reading in books like Song Spirals from the Yolngu women. They're saying, just go and sit with country. So I just started doing that, sort of without a compass particularly. And here I started watching the light. I started watching the sun come up, and I happened to be in a place for 2 months, from I think it was August, September, and every morning the sun would come up, and as soon as it came over that ridge, it would hit me in the face. And so I would leap out of bed and grab my camera, and it's incredible time of just the sun really sort of saying, hey. And just in front here are these two dingo, this mountain in the northern Caldera of New South Wales, these two dingo spirits. And I was sort of saying, do you want to talk to me? What do you want to tell me? And nothing. They didn't want to tell me anything, while I was kind of saying, where's my revelation? Where's my knowledge? So on the day before I left, a song arrived that told me a lot about the sun and the way it conveys knowledges. And actually around this time, I had been singing, without even knowing what it meant, I had been singing that really famous Gayatri mantra. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Gayatri mantra, the one that Deva, Pramal, and Miten sing. Om Bhurbhuva Svaha Tatsaviturvarenyam. Guess what? Savitur is the sun. Savitur is the energy of enlightenment. So I'd been singing to this energy without even knowing that's what I was doing. And then suddenly I'm in this place where the light's all over my face when I wake up. And this song finally came, and I'm just going to sing you a little bit of it. So just breathe with me and let's drop in to here. This is what's conveyed to me. Like, it may have resonance for you and it may not, but I'm sharing, the pathway, the way methods can work in us to reveal these knowledges. Oh, golden sun, as you climb the eastern sky, will you sing to me? of your journey. And when all is said and done, after the fall and the rise, you'll still be here opening my eyes. So in this, I was getting a sense, and the song developed later. Dingo started to come through, and that had a whole other resonance and story that would unfold. But what was coming through here for me was that the sun was really conscious of these deep cycles of time, and after everything that's the great changes that are ahead, the sun will still be here and still be opening my eyes. So opening the human eye, opening my eyes, still enlightening, still available, still healing. If we're turning into relationship with it. So this was another kind of really pivotal point in my journey. So I spent a long time investigating various methods, like using a hydrophone in the water. Beautiful, you heard the sounds at the beginning, perhaps, and a GoPro looking under the water, and photography, and which were great, and they've been really useful way of tracking and documenting my journey. But what I found, I did a transdisciplinary listening review and all of that kind of stuff. But what I really want to save you from is having to look too deeply for it to know how to listen. So what you can see here is me singing with a little guitar lady with a tree, creek just down the road from, just 20 minutes away from here. That I know this place really well. I visited here for 10 years, and what I came to understand is my primary listening practices are my Zen practice and my singing practice. And why is that? Because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with a lot of prayer through my Catholic tradition. And that's been a long healing journey too. But essentially, that became Zen. It became this kind of practice of just listening and opening to these knowledges, these subtle knowledges. And so Zen and music kind of started to come together in this listening journey. And what I was really starting to listen for, and I put a little photo in here that hasn't come through. I was really listening for subtle things, and I captured a picture of a full moon reflected in a little silver cat dish. So the image I wanted to show you was it's a completely dark image with this little silver cat dish in the middle of the darkness. So catching the really subtle things is what can really help us come forward. So to help us come into understanding what our own sensing method is, because you could do what I do, but it's not your ancestry, it's not your culture, it's not your tradition. Like it may not even resonate. So there's a question about, what your own sensing method is and how to find that and how to come into that. So actually, what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little practice together. So this is step 3. We've talked about the 4 steps in the beginning. This is the step 3, and we've come into our bodies and we've acknowledged the places where we are, and we've talked about different methods and how we're going to come into our own method. So if you're willing, if everyone's willing, I just invite you to, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to drop back into the chat. But for now, I'm just going to ask you to come into your sensing body and let a memory come to you. Let a memory come to you of a time when you were deeply connected to nature, a river, a rock, a feather, a little bird that would come and visit you, a time that you're really connected on this land, on another land. And just drop into your feeling body, what it's like to be in that relationship. And just think back in the ways that you're connecting in that relationship with that being, with that place. And just think, if you journal about feelings like this, or if you sing about them, what's your creative method? What's your pathway into these subtle kinds of ways of feeling and sensing? How do you make sense of it, of what you're sensing? So what you're looking for here are the methods that already belong to you, that belong to your culture, to your family history, to your community, whatever it is. What are the ways that you love to listen? So just make a note, if you would, in the chat about your story of listening and how you did it. Got Sam saying through feeling. Yeah. And Sam's an embodiment practitioner. And for me, I remember being in a really long Zen retreat in the Ventana wilderness in North America. And what would happen would be every morning we would get up really early and we would start chanting in the dark. And I remember it would just kind of, God, it was like it was awakening an ancestral kind of part of me. I remember I would sometimes just weep with relief because it was so familiar that I was in this chanting in this place that was so remote, deep in the wilderness. So these things are in me in some kind of mysterious way. So yeah, the common feeling here. There's a lot about silence and stillness. Seeing Carmen and Jamie. Is that you, Carmen, saying it's stillness and active imagination? Is it that maybe that's a combined? Yeah, I want to say something about imagination here. For many of us coming into this kind of sensing work, I'm just seeing Amrita touching bark, feet in the water. Yeah. There's often a question like, I feel ridiculous. Hi, Jane, lying, relaxing, feeling the ground. Yeah, you're all really, I know all of you. Thank you for coming. You're all actually really awake in your embodiment practices. That's the method. I guess that's why you're here on this, with this practice. Kathy, I can feel you and your music and your singing. So Kathy's a dear friend, if I may say, Kathy with a Celtic ancestry, English and ancestry, and her beautiful musical practice. So these pathways, yeah, Kath, through all the senses. These pathways that open to us, and the sharing of story around what it's like to really be embodied and really start receiving these knowledges and come into these feeling states where we feel so held. So this is how we change the story from the, us, and it happens to me all the time. I'm listening, I'm saying that I'm hearing things, and there's a lot of pushback. Like, how is this knowledge? How is this valid? You look ridiculous. And often this is the inner voice. You look ridiculous. This is boring. This is frustrating. I would rather go and swim or do something, watch Netflix or read a really great book. So that is a thing, and it's something that does come up, at least for me. It still comes up, and I'm going to say it's a gateway into deeper relationship. So if you can meet this voice and this fear of being ridiculous by just acknowledging it as a gateway and just let it be there, just let it be there. And over time, nature is with you and is regulating you, and it kind of drops away. So this relationship that you're coming into, it's not, we're not killing mind here. We're integrating. We're coming into this direct relationship by just really by making sure that we're in a place that we can actually hear. So I'm hoping you're getting a sense, and I think most of you here actually are pretty in a deep sensing practice yourselves. So I want to acknowledge that, and what a privilege it is to be in such company. Like, it's just so great because it creates a field between all of us that's really alive. I want to also acknowledge the hard work that my laptop is doing, because it's really, the fan is really running and it's really hot, so it's having trouble changing screens. Just doing a little time check. We've got 20 minutes. I want to acknowledge listening methods that belong just to this country, and listening methods that some are culturally not for me, and respect for culture when we're listening on the lands which have profound cultural histories, are profoundly storied. This book came into my life at a very particular time, and it's the Yolngu women of Arnhem Land who told to set the record straight, they said, and to make sure it was well understood that mining companies coming in actually were destroying something really sacred, and they were putting it out there so that no one could say they didn't know. But they shared these 5 song spiral stories, which are about their song lines and the way they sing up the world and remake the world. And so I went really deep with these song spiral stories. And one of them was about Wuimiri, the whale. So there's this whale story, which is very connected to an elder among these women. I walked the Brisbane River, Mianjin, I think it's pronounced, with this story turning me in me about the whale, waiting for some kind of instruction, and nothing happened. I did it for months, nothing happened. And I told my Zen teacher, and she said, of course nothing happened. The story belongs to place, it belongs in Arnhem Land. So that was the first thing, like really coming to understand that first I wasn't listening with a method that belonged to that place. And so it's a question that I'm still really sensing with about how to listen to dreamings on this land and whether or not they even want to talk to me. I'm not going to say too much about that because I'm not, it's a question that anyone who lives on this land, showing respect to the depth, of the knowledge and the making of place that was done for tens and tens of thousands of years. And how do we come into relation in a way that gives due to the custodianship and the surviving existing custodianship that is happening here. So that's for me, it's a koan. So I just let it work in me. And I do find if I'm listening to a particular story of a particular totemic animal, that it does speak in a particular way. And I'm not saying it holds some kind of bigger cosmological thing, but it's I feel really validated that it speaks particularly. So that story I shared about black cockatoo, really speaking really directly, was an affirmation that these energies in place are coming into a direct relationship with us, though perhaps in a new way. So these might be sort of pathways into these new, what sometimes call these new dreamings, these new songlines. What are we dreaming together with country? Oh, there's the image I wanted to show you before. Hello, it's a little cat bowl in the moonlight, hiding and revealing itself. So I'm not actually going to go on for too much longer. I did want to just introduce this chair because it's been in my family for 100 years, and I want to acknowledge the cedar log that this chair was made from. And I want to acknowledge the deeper ancestry of this chair that came from a sacred cedar forest that was felled. And I want to acknowledge the genocides and ecocides that happened. And I'm actually sitting on this chair, or its sibling, as I'm speaking to you, and I'm writing my PhD, and I'm sensing into time, and the circularity of time, and the question about how can I be worthy of the gift of this chair? How can I be worthy of the sacrifice of this cedar forest? And the least I can do is listen and see what it remembers, because it knew my grandmother and I didn't. So for me, this chair is also a metaphor for the voices that we haven't known how to hear, and that we're coming into I don't know how to hear. And so the how question actually opens up new neural pathways that can really astonish us with what they bring to us. So here's a series of miracles that happened in my life. I'm not going to explore them for too long, but I ended up at the Ganges suddenly without having to pay for it. And I met beautiful Vandana Shiva and these women who sing songs to their seeds to sing them into life and sing their gratitude to the seeds as they're sowing them. So they're in this profound relationship with the vegetal and the animal world around them. And there's the Ganges. Oh, I thought the sound wasn't working. I was going to share a song about Lakshmi, this beautiful statue, Lakshmi. Lakshmi is a guardian of the Ganges. And this is my beautiful friend, Penny Speaker, who could also be called Penny Singer, who's an incredible musician as well as baker. And when this Lakshmi statue, I brought her home and her hands broke in my luggage. And I thought I'd done something terribly wrong. I was really like, I think I'm actually quite superstitious. And so I ended up writing a song about Lakshmi. And what I want to convey, what the song conveyed to me, was that Lakshmi was, I said, Lakshmi, your broken hands, that's the first part of the song. And then Lakshmi sang to me, here you purify, with the river. Here you're forgiven with the river. And Lakshmi also in this song tells me that she's waking me from some medieval spells and from my broken history. So for me, this song, with another series of events that were happening around this time, really brought me into this feeling that the natural world in all its different ways was somehow breaking this spell, this amnesia, this sensory amnesia, that it was waking me up in mysterious ways. So let's take a deep breath. And I would love to invite you to share some reflections, acknowledging this beautiful billabong at dusk and the light on the leaves and the trees reflected in the water and the sky reflected on the surface of the water and the depth of that billabong. Understand it's about 9 meters deep. It's not a big billabong. But if you feel to, just drop a comment into the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to go back and see who's the photobombing kitty cat. Oh. Let me know what's moved in you in this journey that we've been on together, about arriving, about feeling, about embodiment, about I don't know and how to be with I don't know, about belonging and how to belong. I'd really love to know a little bit about your own journeys. And the kitty cat with the chair is my sister's cat. His name is Bodhi. Oh, Sam. Oh, thanks. Sam's just saying I'm a magical storyteller that she was immersed and mesmerized. Oh, I love that. It's hard, I can't see you guys because I've been so in the maybe I could turn if you haven't got your cameras on, I'd love to be able to see you. And Rita feels invited to explore this further. Oh, that's cool. I'd love to see you. I don't know if I can see. How many of you are there? Have you? Oh, look at all of you. Oh, loves. Thank you so much for coming, my dear friends, Jax and Sam. I'm looking forward to dropping in with you. And hi, Jane. Particularly grateful you're here. Kathy, always such a supporter. My beautiful friend Kathy and Amrita for putting all this together. Andrew, Carmen, and Jamie have always been so interested in my work. Local friends, dear friends over many years. Hi, Zach. Really grateful you're here with your incredible intuition and your insight. Amrita, gosh, what a privilege and a pleasure. I feel really wow. Oh. So I guess in closing, I want to acknowledge all of you. I don't understand the emotion I'm in. I'm really moved. I feel really, that we open these spaces together, don't we? And we teach each other and we witness each other in our courageous coming forward. So I want to acknowledge all of you for doing that and for coming and being with me here. I'll send some sound files through. It's a bit tricky on Zoom. I'm still figuring that piece out, but there's some songs I'd love to share. Please drop in with my website if you'd like to. It's brialistening.com. Here it is. That's me under the water, where I'm often found, except when it's winter. I'd love you to drop in and just have a look at my website. And I also want to mention, as these knowledges have opened up, a lot of people kind of are asking me about mentoring, and I'm really interested in doing that. And my twin sister's an executive coach, and so we've developed a method which draws on integral coaching practice, but actually allows me to draw through some of these deeper ways of knowing. Also, obviously, it draws on my professional and spiritual and other experiences and life experience. So, particularly for people in transition. The method I'm using in the mentoring is I'm kind of waking up these ancestral energies, and I use these oracle cards, if that's appropriate, in how we're presenting and dropping in together. So I want to mention I've got some spots available for mentoring, and I also do sort of one-on-ones, at times of transition, just to see what can be brought through and what can be sensed with and brought forward. So I just want to acknowledge that. And if you sign up today, there's a 25% discount for you for being here, and in gratitude for your incredible presence, which I can feel. And I'm really grateful for that. So I'm going to sign off. Again, thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with all of you on our journeys together. Amrita, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I do. Well, Rhea, that was an incredible presentation. Thank you so much. You are a gifted storyteller and a wonderful singer. What I think I'd like to know, Rhea, is that where can people get your music?
Oh,
Do you have an album out or a CD out or something on MP3 that people can download?
Look, I'm going to send some links around. I'm being a bit slow about putting the music out because the songs I've been in are part of my PhD process. And so, yeah, it's something I'm working on, is being a bit more forward with the things that I can share. So I deeply appreciate that prompt. So I'm going to spend some time responding to your invitation, Amrita, and I'm going to make some songs available to everyone who's, signed up for this. And I'd love all your feedback. Like, are you hearing in the lyrics, this invitation, or are you hearing in the lyrics spell breaking? Are you hearing in the lyrics a reassurance that the country's waking you up? Are you hearing in the lyrics that you belong and that you're being shown how to belong more deeply? That's what I'm really interested in. So there you go. Thank you for that invitation, Amrita.
Okay, so if you are happy to pass those songs on to me, I can email them out, a link out to everybody.
Beautiful.
To you and who is watching the replay.
Yeah.
So anyone who's registered, I can get those links out to them.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and in the chat is how you can contact Rhea. A couple of other little bits and pieces she's put in there about the Song Spirals books.
Oh, and also, I don't know if I mentioned that I actually did a book review of Song Spirals, and I did an audio review.
Yeah, you've got that link there.
Yeah, so I really invite people to have a listen to the All New Women singing their Song Spirals, because something is conveyed, something's conveyed sonically. Sound actually carries is material. It carries particles in it, and something's conveyed in that singing. So if you're willing to just let it wash over you, you might come into some magic.
And I've seen the movie Tanner. It's a really good movie.
Have you?
In a really immature way. The sheaths did make me laugh a bit, but I'm actually going to watch I'm going to watch the movie again with a whole new set of eyes now.
Yeah, it's an astonishing film.
All right. Everyone's just saying thank you. I'm just reading through the comments.
If anyone wants to unmute and just say hello, I would love that, so I can hear you.
Yeah, people should be able to unmute themselves, I think.
I don't even know what you can see. That's the funny thing
Hello?
is. Hello, Rhea. It's Jane.
Hi, Jane.
I'm live.
Hi.
I've listened to you in my Sunday afternoon rest.
I love that.
I come in and out of consciousness, but there's one thing for sure: my nervous system's been, relaxed. Thank you.
That's an utter privilege for you, Jane.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Rhea. It's Carmen. I can't get my video to work, but Jamie and I really enjoyed that.
Yes, thanks, Rhea. It's lovely.
Great. Love
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Love you too, honey.
Yeah.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure to witness.
Thank
you. And yeah, you bring a great richness to our lives whenever we connect. Thank you, Rhea.
Oh, likewise.
Okay, I just want to thank everybody for joining us for Rhea's session and any other session that you've been involved in. The other sessions and this one will go up on YouTube within the next week. So, yeah, if you haven't already, jump onto the Breaking Boxes YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and you'll get all the updates of what's coming up when and any new offers. And I'm just going to drop a little penny, Rhea. I think we need to work together again in the future. I think we need to do some more together there, darling. So,
well, I'm going to say, Amrita and I actually been talking about creating a retreat together, because Amrita is an incredible logistician. Her capacity is way beyond my ken. But yeah, Amrita and I are in a conversation about creating a retreat together. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's wrap up the Power of Connection online summit. Thank you very much for everyone who joined us live and in the replay. Thank you to all the presenters. You've all volunteered your time and you've all done an absolutely sensational job. And I think I want to just thank the last two people, Sam. Sam has been with me the whole time on the back end, on the side end. She's listened to all my whinges and cries and moans for help and kept me steady. And just Andrew, my husband, he's just been my tech IT guy and an absolute hero in all this, and I couldn't have done it without him. So I just want to acknowledge Sam and Andrew as well as all the presenters and everyone who came along. So thank you.